All right, good morning, everyone. We are here with break 433. It is a 26 League Heroes combo break. We were pushing 435. I thought that one was going to sell out first, but 433 and 435 have sold out at the same time. So here we are, 433 has been waiting the longest, and we are getting that one done this morning. All right, just bear with me. I'm just using my phone before we kick off. All right. So, break 43, 26 League Heroes combo break features the 26 League Heroes case, 2 26 League Hero hobby boxes, and 5 26 League Hero starter packs. Our team list for this one: Broncos, Johnny D; Raiders, Johnny D; Bulldogs, James Nurka; Sharks, Michael Callaghan; Dolphins, Johnny D; Titans, Johnny D; Manly, Johnny D; Storm, Johnny D. Just to note, he jumped in this morning, guys, and took the last 4 spots and the last 2 spots in 435, so we can get them done. Knights, Matthew Hart; Cowboys, Stephen Casey; Eels, Steve Harris; Panthers, Rhoel. Rabbitohs, Stephen Casey; Dragons, Brendon, Sykes; Roosters, Sheree, Murdoch; Warriors, Daniel Sorich; Tigers, Harry Reckless. All right. Here we are. We have our hobby boxes here. We're going to put them to the back for last. We have our starter packs, and our retail case is sitting off in the background just over there. Let's get these bonus packs out. Let's bring up the chat and the team list actually before we do get started. There we go. Team list is there. Might just hit refresh on YouTube as well to update that. All right. Top tipper. I haven't had a chance to do that this morning. I haven't even looked, so I don't even know. We'll do that afterwards. I also didn't get around to listing the next 2 breaks, guys. You'll have to see the 2 coming soon breaks that are listed currently. Once I've finished here, I will try and get them up as soon as possible, along with another hobby case break as coming soon. If you don't already know, you can add them breaks to your wish list to get a notification as soon as they are live. That goes for all products on the website that are out of stock. Even if there's not a picture, that's probably the best time to add something to your wish list if it's listed without a picture, because there's a good chance that we will eventually bust something. So, all right, our 5 starter pack bonus cards. Let's get the tops off these. Now, I highly do not recommend trying to open these packets. There's only 1 card inside, and they're very easy to damage because there's no firmness in it. Well, as you'll see, we'll smash all these open in a second. Brayden Trindle for the Sharks. Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Going to be a full top row. Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Raiders or Dolphins? Top shelf. Oh, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. All right, well, that's them done and dusted. Who do we get? Cowboys, Stephen Casey. James Nurka with the Bulldogs. Michael Callaghan with Sharks. Dolphins, Johnny D, as well as Broncos. Colour die cut, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Renato Mortalo for the Sharks. Bang, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. For anyone waiting for pictures from yesterday afternoon's break, I literally just finished them before I come out here and set up to go live for this. So we haven't yet posted them, but I do have them, and Dad's packing the orders to get them sent out. It is crazy, guys. Yeah, league heads Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous Harry Grant for the Storm. I'd like to welcome all the new people to the hobby. Red Triumph, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Bang, Hugo Savala for Roosters. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. League heads, Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. League heads, Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Adam Fanua Blake for Sharks. Mercury, Keanu Kinney for the Titans, number 394. Luminous, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Just a reminder as well, guys, we will be live with break 4:35 after this one this afternoon. Game Breakers, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. We will be listing the next two breaks before that, in between. So if you haven't already got them in your wish list, make sure you get that done. Bang, Lehe Hopewate for Manly. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. And there is still a few spots in our next hobby case break that's already listed. James Schiller die cut for the Knights. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Alright, that's all the packs out of the starter packs. So we'll just move them over to the side, out of our way. I'll open up this case. We'll get Pick the Score giveaway up today. I'll make sure I get that done this afternoon. No winners last round, guys, so jackpots again. And that is only in the Facebook group, not the Facebook page. If you're looking for the Facebook group and can't find it, please send us a message on Facebook and we'll send you the link. I'll try and remember to get a post up for that as well to make it a bit easier. Lee Marshall, good morning. What happened to your eel? Oh, don't even. Fox had a couple of good chases in him and then he was gassed. How about that intercept from Jaden Campbell? That looked awesome. I couldn't stop watching the replay. And to be honest, as bad as we looked, I don't know if we just made them look good, but Titans were looking on fire. I quite enjoyed watching them yesterday. They were moving that ball around. It was, yeah. Every time we tried to move the ball, there was an error. Don't know how many tries they scored off our errors. Ran the whole field. Alright, box number 1. Already got to open a few packets from the starter packs. Bang Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Game Breakers Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Luminous Cameron McInnes for Sharks. Die cuts Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Trent Leroux for Storm. League heads Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game Breakers Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. Wrong end. Bang Joash for the Eels. Luminous Marata Nakor for Warriors. League heads Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. Game breakers, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Jack Whiten, Mercury for the Rabbitohs, number 331. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. League heads, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Bang, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Game breakers, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. League heads, Valami Kicker for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Die cut, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. League heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Falago for the Storm. Game breakers, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Brendon Smith for the Rabbitohs. Clive Churchill medals. Luminous, Tamale for the Raiders. League heads, Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous, Emma Barron for the Sharks. Red Triumph, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Latu Finu for the Tigers. Game breakers, Sotili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Bang, Elafiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Gladiators, Hammer for the Dolphins, number 353. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous, Angelina for the Bulldogs. Bang, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. League heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for the Panthers. Die cut, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Alex Twile for the Tigers. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Red Triumph for the Panthers. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. League heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Greg Marshew for the Knights. Bang, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. 3 packets left for the box. Game breakers, Trent Leroux for Storm. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Die cuts, Jesse Arthurs for the Broncos. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. League heads, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Alright, let's clean up the box. If you're watching, James, I approved your request before we, well, I think I was already live on YouTube, but before we actually were active. How about that? Because I was running behind, I did want to get the break YouTube going. Yeah, just so everyone knew what was happening. We were coming. this is box number 2, guys. Die cuts, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Ali Latua for the Warriors. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Red Triumph for the Sharks. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Harry Grant for Storm. Bang, Apsai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Game Breakers, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Red Triumphs, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Zach Labour for the Cowboys. League heads, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Colour die cuts, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. League heads, Fanua Pole for Tigers. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Bang, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. League heads, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. Colour die cut, Sua Wong for the Roosters. Luminous Mitch Kenny for Panthers. League heads, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Game breakers, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous, Bailey Hayward for the Bulldogs. League heads, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Game breakers, Abasite Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Bang Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. League heads, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Luminous, Marky Mark for Roosters. Shocking Butterfingers. Colour die cut, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tommy Gilbert for the Dolphins. Bang, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Game breakers, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous, Latu Fainu for Tigers. Die cut, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Game breakers, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Bang, Stephen Crichton for Bulldogs. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous, Angelina for the Bulldogs. League heads, Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous, Zach Lomax for Eels. Mercury, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights, number 67. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. 3 packets left for the box. League heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Bang! Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. Gladiators Joash for the Eels, number 177. Tyson Frizzell Luminous for the Knights. And that's the end of box number 2. Out of the way. Box number 3. League heads Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Sorry, let me just get comfortable again. Lock it back in. Die cuts Stephen Crichton for the Panthers. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. I said Panthers and I still put him in the right team. Go figure. Game breakers Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. Bang Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. League heads Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Mercury Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks, number 418. Late fly, go away. Sai Iongi for the Eels in the Luminous. Game breakers Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League heads Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Bang Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. League heads Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Colour die cuts Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game breakers, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Luminous Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Red Triumphs for the Bulldogs. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. League heads, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Bang, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. League heads, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. We have an instant win. Morgan Smithies, Luminous for the Raiders. Game breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Game breakers, Asaya Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Gladiators, Tom Starling for the Raiders, number 291. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. League heads, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Bang, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Game breakers, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Colour die cuts, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game breakers, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. League heads, Alex Twal for Tigers. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Isaiah Iongi, bang for the Eels. Luminous, Jesse Colquhoun for the Sharks. League heads, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Red Triumphs, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. 4 packets left for box number 3. League heads, Brendon Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Colour die cut, Isaiah Iongi for the Eels. Luminous, Xavier Coates for Storm. Bang, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. League heads, Stefano Utokumanu for Storm. And Luminous, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. That's the end of box number 3. Alright. Gladiators, Mitch Kenny for Panthers, number 419. Luminous, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, Tui Kamikamika for Storm. Game Breakers, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Die cuts, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. League heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous White for the Roosters. Bang Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Jack Bostock for Dolphins. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Die cut, Zach Hosking for the Raiders. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Bang Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Game breakers, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. League heads, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Gold die cuts, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. League heads, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for Sharks. Game breakers, Bo Fermor for Titans. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. Bang Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. League heads, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Triumph, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. League heads, Asaya Yo for Panthers. Luminous Bo Fermor for Titans. Game breakers, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for Cowboys. Colour die cuts, Sean Bloor for Storm. Luminous, Alex 12 for the Tigers. League heads, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Tyron Wishart for Storm. Bang, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Brendon Trindle for the Sharks. League heads, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Bang, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous, Bradman Best for the Knights. Colour die cuts, Jake Clifford for the Cowboys. Luminous, Junior Paulo for the Eels. League heads, Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous, Felice Kafusi for the Dolphins. Hit a low. G'day, Jared. Awesome. Game Breakers, James Tedesco for the Roosters. I can't remember how you went in that one, to be honest. Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Bang, Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Luminous, Lachlan Elias for Dragons. 3 packets left for box number 4. League heads, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Mercury, Ethan Strange for the Raiders, number 391. Luminous, Max King for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph for the Titans. Luminous, Lyshan Albert Jones. Oh, yep, nice. Alright, that's box number 4, done and dusted. Alright, get that one out of the way. Box number 5. Only 2 of the bigger hits so far. The 2 for 4. 50% strike rate. Only got 11 of the hits yesterday in the hobby case in 34. Bang, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Philip Semi for the Titans. Game breakers, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Die cuts, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Dane Gagai for the Knights. League heads, Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Mercury, Luke Lawlilly for Tigers, number 85. Luminous, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Game breakers, Trent Tegan Dimmick for the Bulldogs. Sorry. Dylan Walker, Luminous for the Eels. League heads, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Bang Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous, Brian To'a for Panthers. League heads, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous, Luke Lawlilly for Tigers. Die cuts, Jake Averillo for the Dolphins. Luminous, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Game breakers, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Gladiators, Big Naz for Storm, number 233. Blake Brayley, Luminous for the Sharks. League heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tui Kamikamika for Storm. Die cuts, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Jake Trebojevic for Manly. Game breakers, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Bang Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Oh, sorry. League Heads Greg Marsu for the Knights. Luminous Nafor White for Roosters. Die cut Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Bostock for Dolphins. League Heads Asaya Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Game Breakers Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Bang Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Red Triumph Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. League Heads Milwaukee Bodawaka for Titans. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Bang James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Roger Tuvasashek for Warriors. Die cuts Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. League Heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. Red Triumphs Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Game Breakers Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Stefano Itakamanu for Storm. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Game Breakers Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Luminous Bo Fermor for Titans. 2 packets left for the box. League Heads Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Alright, lucky last for the box. Bang Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. And Luminous Alex 12 for the Tigers. Alright, let's get these cleaned up and out of our way. Alright, well, that's box number 5, done and dusted. I am just going to duck inside and get a can of Coke. I'm feeling a bit dry and a bit hot out here, so bear with me for 2 seconds, a minute or so. Sorry, I was feeling very dry and muggy. Alright, have my mouth full and grab another box. Game breakers, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Bang Matty Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. League heads Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Triumph Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Tommy Starling for the Raiders. Game breakers Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Game breakers Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Bang, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Game Breakers, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. League Heads, Alifiana Khan-Ki Era for Titans. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. Die Cut, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for Storm. League Heads, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Luminous, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Bang, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous, Saratoga Tuki for the Tigers. League Heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Dally M. Luminous, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. What's the best card to pull? Well, that's a matter of opinion. In these, it would probably be your Golden Treasures, your Instant Wins. In the hobby, I would definitely say your Black Triumph signatures. Yeah, just depends on what you're chasing. But out of the whole series, hobby and retail, I'd say your Golden Treasures and your Black Triumph signatures would be your two biggest cards. Well then, yeah, down from there. League Heads, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Red Triumph for the Roosters. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. I think we may have found 3 Golden Treasures in the breaks we've done, and to this day, as far as I know, we still haven't opened one ourselves for the website. So in everything we've opened, we've only opened 3 Golden Treasures. So if it's not the best pull, it's definitely one of the hardest. Jermaine Isako, Mercury for Dolphins, number 259. Don't even get me started on all the post people opening a pack and hitting one. Hamoli Olika R2, Luminous for Manly. I'm not sure if it actually worked out as there was a signature in every box. I know it was close, and it probably depended on what releases we went over. I could be wrong there. It's been a while since we've opened the leak. Game breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. But yes, if we're going off what elites had, then I'd definitely say we're expecting some big releases over the next few months. So, but we haven't heard anything of any upcoming releases when the next release will be. So we're just all waiting. Brian Tyler, league heads for Panthers. Luminous Milwaukee Fodawaika for Titans. We're going to have to watch and learn this year, and then next year we'll have to see if it works for them and they're doing the same again, or if they're making changes. We just won't know until it happens. Bang, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Game breakers, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League heads, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Die cuts, Phoenix Crossland for Knights. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Chance Nicole Cockstad for the Warriors. League heads, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. For the more expensive releases, yeah. More expensive and less in the boxes. Game breakers, Payne Haas for the Broncos. But in saying that, you're then looking at a release that's basically full of patches and signatures. It's, yeah, William Kennedy, Luminous for the Sharks. Gladiators, Aleka Halasima for the Warriors. Number 6. Luminous Satili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Die cuts, Nelson Sofa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Bang, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for Knights. Game breakers, Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Die cuts, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Max Plath for the Dolphins. League heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs to finish it off. That's box number 6 done and dusted. Into box number 7. Get some more sugar. Must admit, it was quite fresh this morning. Die cut, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Game breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Bang, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous, Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. League heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. Game breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Gladiators, Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys, number 206. Luminous, Luca Moretti for the Eels. League heads, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Game Breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Die Cuts, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. League Heads, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. Bang Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Kale Arrow for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. League Heads, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Mercury Murray Talagi for Cowboys, number 377. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Die cut Matthew Feagai for the Dragons. Luminous Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. League Heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Oh, get open. League Heads, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Keezy up. Yep, no, Keezy up, so it was right for the Tigers. No, something just felt wrong. Didn't sound right. Bang Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Die cut Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game Breakers, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Sounds like more cases being delivered. Bang AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Daly M Predictor. League Heads Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Alefiana Khan Era for Titans. Die Cuts Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. League Heads Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Robert Toyer for the Roosters. Bang Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Game Breakers Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League Heads Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph Reese Walsh for Broncos. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League Heads Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game Breakers James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Last packet for box number 7. Bang Dream Buller for Tigers. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. Alright, another box done and dusted. Box number 8. Game Breakers Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. League Heads William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. Game Breakers Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Bang Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. League heads Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Colour die cuts Clayton for Lalo for Manly. Luminous Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Game breakers Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang Whenua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League heads Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Colour die cut Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Mercury Philip Semi for the Titans, number 318. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. League heads Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Game breakers Ben Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Bang Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alefiana Khan Kiera for the Titans. League heads Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Die cut Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Game breakers Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Luminous Samima Torfa for the Raiders. Bang Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph for the Eels. Luminous Reed Marnie for Cowboys. Die cuts, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game breakers, Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. League heads, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. Bang Toltokawala for Manly. Luminous Hamoli Olika Atu for Manly. Gladiators, Tanila Paseka for Manly, number 139. Lindsay Collins, Luminous for the Roosters. League heads, Alex Johnston for Rabbitohs. Luminous Mawaki Photo Ika for Titans. Game breakers, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Bang Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League heads, Falago for Storm. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Red Triumph, Keon Kolomatengi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. League heads, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Game breakers, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Ethan Sanders for Raiders. League heads, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous William Kennedy for Sharks. Colour die cut, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. League heads, Big Tino for Titans. And Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. That is box number 8, done and dusted. Don't forget, we will be live with break 4:35 a little bit later this afternoon. Game breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins, Luminous Adam Reynolds for Broncos. Come on, let's finish strong. Die cuts, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights, Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. League heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs, Luminous Farlago for Storm, Game breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels, Luminous Brendon Smith for Rabbitohs. Gold Triumph, Luminous Tamale for the Raiders, Bang Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins, Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks, Game breakers, Alefiana Khan Piera for Titans, Luminous Samula Finu for Tigers, League heads, Luke Brooks for Manly, Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins, Die cut, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors, Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors, Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans, Bang Farlago for Storm, Luminous Patrick Carrigan for Broncos. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons, Luminous Dane Gagai for Knights, Die cut, Jack Bostock for Dolphins, Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Game breakers, Tyson Frizzell for Knights, Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons, Red Triumph, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. League Heads Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Bang Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers. League Heads Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. League Heads John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Game Breakers Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Luminous Greg Marsu for the Knights. Bang Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. League Heads Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Gladiators Bo Fermor for the Titans, number 113. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game Breakers Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. League Heads AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Game Breakers Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. League Heads Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Die cuts Payne Haas for Broncos. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. Game Breakers Loco Pacifici Tonga for the Dragons. Luminous Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Red Triumph for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. Billy Walters, Mercury for the Broncos, number 217. Jermaine Hopgood, Luminous for the Eels. League Heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Excuse me. Bang Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. League Heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Alright, that was box number 8 done and dusted. And then up over there. Box number 9. Our third last box out of the case. League Heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for Tigers. Colour die cuts, Latu Fainu for Tigers. Luminous Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. League Heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Premiership Predictor. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Don't know if there is any good predictors at the moment, to be honest. Especially with that round and the last one, there's been quite a few big upsets and quite a few blowouts. So, League Heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Bang Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. League Heads Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. Gladiators Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos, number 89. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League Heads Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Game Breakers Lachlan Elias for the Dragons. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Bang Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. League Heads Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. Mercury Jaden Sewer for the Dragons, number 169. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Alex Seafarth for Tigers. Ruben Cotter die cut for Cowboys. Luminous Keon Colomateni for Rabbitohs. Aaron Clark die cut for the Warriors. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Bang Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League Heads Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Game Breakers Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Max Plath for Dolphins. Red Triumph for the Dragons. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Bang Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Luminous Regan Campbell-Gillard for the Titans. League Heads Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jackson Purdue Luminous for Cowboys. Game Breakers Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Blaze Tulagi for Panthers. Thomas Jenkins for Panthers. Luminous Tom Starling for Raiders. Oh. League Heads Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Game Breakers Milwaukee Photo Ica for Titans. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Bang William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Red Triumph Blaze Tulagi for Panthers. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. League Heads James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. 3 packets left for the box. Game Breakers Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. League Heads Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for Storm. And lucky last packet for the box. Bang Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for Raiders. And that's the end of another box done. Get them out of the way. Game Breakers Kira Dibb for Cowboys. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. League Heads Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Bang Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. Game Breakers, Clinton Gutherson for Dragons. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. League Heads, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League Heads, Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Die Cuts, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Katoni Staggs for Broncos. Bang Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. League Heads, Germat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Jacob Carraz for Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Alex Seafarth for Tigers. Red Triumph, Hamoli Olika Atu for Manly. Luminous Keon Kolomatingi for the Rabbitohs. Die Cuts, Matty Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Ali Latua for the Warriors. League Heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Jessica Surgis for Roosters. Bang Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Gladiators, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs, number 71. Harry Grant, Luminous for Storm. Red Triumph, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. League Heads, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Die cuts, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Game Breakers, Nafor White for the Roosters. Luminous, Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Bang Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboy. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. League Heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. Die cuts, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Asaya Katoa for Dolphins. League Heads, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Xavier Savage, Luminous for Raiders. Bang, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Game Breakers, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. League Heads, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. Mercury Connor Watson for the Roosters, number 389. Luminous Mitch Kenny for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Brian Kelly for Titans. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Five packets to go, including this one. League Heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Die cut, Egan Butchers for the Roosters. Luminous Jalen de Groot for Titans. League Heads, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Bang Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Cassie Higu for the Eels. Last packet for the box. Game Breakers Xavier Savage for the Raiders. And Marky Mark Luminous for the Roosters. Alright, before we go any further, guys, I need to apologise. I need to duck off to the toilet. I'm busting now. I'll be back in a moment. Oh, that quick. Alright guys, box number 12. Let's get into it. Drink and a toilet break this break. Oh my god, what am I doing? I promise no breaks in the hobby case. How about that? Bring the chat and team list back up. I literally ran up the hall and ran back. Alright, let's go. Let's move these out of the way first. Box number 12. Mercury Asaya Papalihi for Panthers, number 430. Jerome Luai, Luminous for the Tigers. Bang Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. League Heads Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Game Breakers Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. League Heads Keon Colomateni for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Die cut Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game Breakers Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. League Heads Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Dean Mariner for Broncos. Game Breakers Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Red Triumph Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. League Heads Asaya Katoa for the Dolphins. Alex Johnston Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Valami Kikia for the Bulldogs. Die cut Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Episode Coruscant for Tigers. League Heads Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. Game Breakers Shaylee Bent for the Titans. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Bang James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. League Heads Milwaukee Photo Icon for Titans. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. League Heads Moses Leotta for Panthers. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Bang Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Ruben Cotter for Cowboys. Game Breakers Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Luminous Dream Buller for the Tigers. League Heads Greg Marju for the Knights. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Die cuts Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. League heads, Joash for the Eels. Brian Egan, Luminous for the Eels. Dragons. Red Triumph, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Luminous A Church for Eels. Swanu for the Bulldogs. Spencer Lenu, Luminous for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Sanua Taruva for the Tigers. Number 81. No. Oh, damn. Come on, snap out of it. Zai Yo, Luminous for Panthers. Having a moment, guys. Bear with me. Bang Ali for the Warriors. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. League heads, Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Die cuts, Luca Moretti for Eels. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. League heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Asaya Iongi for Eels. Bang Mitchell Moses for Eels. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters, number 511. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. 3 packets left for the case. Game Breakers, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Dally M Predictor, lucky last box. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. And lucky last packet. Game Breakers, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. Alright, that is all of our retail open, done and dusted. Let's get into the hobby. 2 boxes of hobby. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys, number 273. Gold Gladiators, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly, number 60. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins, number 660. Playmakers Brendon Smith for Panthers, number 32. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm, number 567. Gold die cut Damien Cook for the Dragons, number 65. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers, number 680. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors, number 697. Gold die cuts Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos, number 210. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Etched Talon De Silva for the Eels, number 45. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks, number 278. Mercury Sterling Dylan Egan for the Dragons, number 56. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Gold die cuts Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels, number 365. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons, number 531. Gold die cut Luke Brooks for Manly, number 139. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers, number 390. And we have a Dally M Predictor. I thought that was a silver. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights, number 45. Gold die cuts Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs, number 188. Luminous Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly, number 494. Etched Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs, number 124. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters, number 261. Gladiators Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders, number 47. I forgot to sleeve the Kurt Mann card 1, 2. We'll do that. Milwaukee Photo Ica Luminous for the Titans, number 479. Gold die cut Salavi for Storm, number 231. Oh. Luminous Ali Bregan Shaw for the Broncos, number 299. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors, number 365. Etched Jacob Host for the Rabbitohs, number 2. Oh, nice low one. That's what we like. Who's got Rabbitohs? Brendon Sykes. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs, number 689. Alright, that was the first box of hobby. Let's go with the second. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters, number 353. Gold die cuts Spencer Lenu for the Roosters, number 166. Luminous Max Plath for Dolphins, number 564. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs, number 353. Gold Gladiators Luciano Leilua for Dragons, number 100. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors, number 557. Gold die cuts Jack Williams for the Eels, number 101. Luminous Ben Trbojevic for Manly, number 688. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers, number 433. Gold die cuts, Marcelo Montoya for the Bulldogs, number 101. Another 101. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels, number 498. Etched Jake Trbojevic for Manly, number 4. It's funny, I feel like I've just got a second win just to start smashing them, and we're almost finished. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for the Storm, number 478. Mercury Sterling Ruben Cotter for Cowboys, number 71. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders, 620. Luminous. I thought we were doing a retail box then. I was just about to spin out with what we've just hit. Regan Campbell Gillard, Luminous for Titans, number 343. We have a Triumph signature. Jackson Purdue, Luminous, number 194. Gold die cut, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks, 121. Come on, now I want to go through the hits. Let's go. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers, number 610. Luminous Tom Starling for Raiders, number 554. Etched AJ Brimson for the Titans, number 109. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos, number 443. Gold die cut, Taylor May for the Tigers, 122. Our fourth last packet for this break. Jesse Ramian, Luminous for the Sharks, number 487. Playmakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks, number 46. Luminous Azali Hopkins for the Dragons, number 534. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs, number 368. Gold die cuts, Jaden Campbell for the Titans, number 44. And lucky last packet for the break. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights, number 190. And Etched Katoni Staggs for the Broncos, number 78. Alright, let's go through our hits. Starting at the beginning, it was a Clive Churchill predictor, number 160 for the Dragons. Brendon Sykes. 160 up there in the corner. Instant win. Who's got this one? Johnny D for the Titans. Dally M predictor number 20. Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Brendon Sykes again. Dragons going off. Next up, Dally M predictor number 45. Wild card for the Rabbitohs, Stephen Casey. Our gold triumph number 56 for Raiders. Johnny D with the Raiders. Alright. Premiership predictor number 226 for the Broncos. Sorry, I was a bit twisted up and trying to find the number. 226. Keep it going. Dally M predictor number 2. You like the low ones? For the Hammer, Dolphins. Alright. Dally M predictor wild card number 42. Daniel Sorich for the Warriors. And lucky last for the break. And I'd say definitely one of the biggest hits for the break. It's number 41. And it is a Triumph Signature Redemption. Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Roll on with that one. Congratulations. Alright guys, well that is it. That is all for this one. Remember, we will be live again a little bit later with break 4:35. So make sure you come back and say hello for that one. Until then guys, that is it. That is all.